Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today we have a returning guest who appeared back in October 2021, which is episode 192. James Sykes is the CEO and director of Baselode Energy, who are a fully funded uranium exploration developer that has achieved resounding success within the region, like holding a portfolio of highly prospective uranium exploration properties in the eastern side of the Athabasca Basin. James is an established geologist and explorer in the Athabasca Basin, namely in obviously uranium exploration and discovery. He's been at the helm of Baselode Energy for the last 3 years. So we want to get an update from him as to what has been happening over the last year since we last spoke, and also what is happening in the uranium space at the moment. He's also going to be speaking at Europe's largest mining event, Resourcing Tomorrow, which was formerly Mines and Money London, which is taking place in London on the 28th to 30th of November, and serves as a unifying platform for the entire mining value chain, fostering learning, lively debates, and providing some valuable networking opportunities. So I encourage you to sort of register now and also receive 10% discount on early bird tickets using the code DIGDEEP10, all in capitals. So why don't you head over to resourcingtomorrow.com/register to get your tickets now. I would also include those in the show notes accompanying this for easy access. So yeah, go and book your tickets now. And obviously James is going to be there. So let's welcome James to the podcast. How you doing, James?
Doing awesome, Rob. Thanks very much for having me again.
No, appreciate your time as well. So for those that haven't heard you before, and I imagine most of our audience has, I wonder if you can just give us an overview of yourself and of your career before we go into speaking more about Baselode.
Okay, I think you've done a great job with the introduction as it was, but I'm trained as a geologist. I've been in the industry, in the uranium exploration industry in northern Saskatchewan's Athabasca Basin since 2006. I've been part of a lot of successful companies and have been part of a lot of big success stories. I was part of the group, part of Denison's team that led to the target area that became the Phoenix and Griffin zones. I was part of Hathor exploration and put together the geological model that suggested we were drilling along the wrong trend. And once we changed our trend, we discovered 2 more deposits. I was leading geologist for NextGen's Arrow discovery, which is probably the largest high-grade undeveloped uranium discovery in the world. So very exciting about that. And in 2020, the OR Group, which is a group of 6 different companies, were looking to put together a uranium vehicle, and my name kept coming across their desk. They reached out, we hit it off, and we launched Baselode in June of 2020. In our first drill program, we made a discovery that we call ACKIO. So it's been a great ride ever since. It's been a great career. I'm very fortunate and very happy to have completed what I've done, and I don't intend to stop anytime soon.
Yeah. So obviously you've been at the company now for 3 years, or just over 3 years. What are some of the achievements that you've made that gets you sort of out of bed every morning and push the company forward? Obviously, as I mentioned in the introduction, as you've mentioned, obviously your experience within the Athabasca Basin and obviously around uranium. But what drives you to get up every morning and see another day within the uranium sector?
I used to say discovery because that was the big key for everything. I've got about 500 million pounds of uranium discovery to my name, but with Baselode, we kind of changed everything. So we developed something called the Athabasca 2.0 thesis, and that we're looking for near surface, high grade basement hosted uranium that can be open pitable. So now it's not more about the discovery, it's more about the discovery of a mine. And that's really what gets me going. Is with our ACKIO discovery, I want to see this go into development. which fits perfectly with the market scenario as it is today. We think that ACKIO is a potential open pit uranium mine that can bring uranium to the future, to nuclear deployment in the future. So yeah, that's definitely the big thing that gets me up in the morning. That and kids.
Yeah, same here. What significant results or new discoveries have you made since we last spoke?
We've expanded ACKIO, and I guess when we last spoke, you said it was what, 2021 or 2022?
2021. So
2021. So it's been a while.
nearly 2 years ago.
Yeah, we've put in close to 30,000 meters of diamond drilling since then, and we've expanded ACKIO. ACKIO is now over 300 meters long. It's over 150 meters wide. There are 11 different zones. And the highlight prior to this year was that we had discovered mineralization within 25 meters of surface. And that's, you have the overburden on top, and then you've got basement rock, and that basement rock is mineralized. There's no other deposit out there really that has that shallow mineralization, and that zone is typically high grade. So we advanced that. We have drill delineated that, but it wasn't until this year that we went to another zone that we already had modeled. But we've also now found that that zone as well starts at the overburden basement contact within about 35, 38 meters from surface. Very exciting. Now we've got two zones that start at that overburden contact. And that's overburden, for those who don't know, but if this is a geology show, you should know what overburden is. It's loose consolidated sediments that were deposited by the glaciers. It's stuff that you can easily scrape off the ground. It's not a mining scenario. It's an earth moving exercise. So very easy to move that material and get down to your basement rock, which is where you would have mineralization starting. So with two zones now at that contact and being that shallow just makes ACKIO that much more lucrative. We've also discovered another sub-parallel trend to the ACKIO system. A little bit of sniffs, but the size of the alteration sequence that we're seeing there and having mineralization within the more preferential alteration is potentially indicative of another system. We call that target mirror because it geologically mirrors ACKIO. And we think that there's potential along that trend as well. So it's been an exciting 2 years, lots of advancement.
Yeah. So how far can ACKIO get? How big can it get, or within that whole region?
Where there are a number of factors. Like we're still open a little bit to the north, but that trend, so ACKIO, the project boundary for ACKIO is adjacent to an Australian company, 92E, and they've got their GMZ. So ACKIO itself, with the GMZ, is quite an extensive system, at least 500, 600 meters long. We have ACKIO is open to the southeast and southwest forests. It is also, it's also open at depth, and that's one of the things that we are going to investigate. We've focused a lot on the shallower mineralization. We have seen, and that's down to about 200 meters. We've seen mineralization as deep as about 320 meters beneath the surface, and we've never tested for it just because drilling costs a little bit more when you have to go deeper. So that's the potential there as well. We have sandstone on the eastern side of ACKIO, and I bring that up as being an important target area because sandstone, that unconformity between the sandstone and the basement rocks is typically where you have really high grades of uranium mineralization in the Athabasca Basin. That's where you get your 5% material, your 20% material. And we've never tested the structural controls on that sandstone target. We put in a hole this year. Oddly enough, we hit nothing but basement rock within 50 meters of our deepest sandstone hole, which had over 100 meters of sandstone thickness. So we know that there's a huge fault that just rips right through the area and offsets the sandstone. And again, we're looking in the Athabasca uranium, it's all fault controlled. So we've got two preferential faults within that sandstone area that could have potential mineralization associated with it. So that's another target in itself. ACKIO is part of the Hook project, and the Hook project has a number of geophysical targets that we expect to drill in the coming years. One of them we had planned for this year, but given the way, just given that the market wasn't fully taking off, we didn't want to have a success in a market that was still not fully attentive. We'd rather have a discovery when the market is there and the investors are all pouring into uranium, and then you have this success, and your stock and your company valuation can just soar. So we'll look at some of those targets next year as well.
Yeah,
lots of potential.
Yes, certainly. And how does ACKIO obviously compare to other discoveries within the region?
It's different, but similar to other open pits that were previously mined, and that's the Athabasca 2.0 thesis. There are a number of discoveries in the Athabasca Basin that are associated with that unconformity between the sandstone and the basement rocks. And a lot of those discoveries have not gone into production, probably won't go into production for a very long time, unless you have modern technologies that can extract the ore. And I reference Denison Mines and their ISL on Phoenix that they're doing, and also Orano and their Sabre technology, which are two innovative technologies to address this problem. Otherwise, you can't do conventional mining in the sandstone, typically because the water infiltration rates are far too high. And that poses a big problem. So we can't really compare ourselves to those unconformity deposits because, again, they sit there for 50 years, for 20 years plus. Unless you've got a Cigar Lake or a MacArthur River, which are over 20% U3O8 grades, those go into production. But I also know Cigar took over 40 years to go from discovery into production. It's a long time for investors to benefit from. If you look at the comparable deposits to ACKIO, which would be the basement hosted near surface open pit style of deposits, yes, we've got similar grades, we've got similar sizes, and again, that open pit mining history exists. A lot of the open pits previously all built the mills, and that's an important point to point out. ACKIO doesn't need a mill because the mill's right down the road, the Key Lake Mill for Cameco and Orano. So this would just basically look like a satellite deposit for that mill. That mill is established. Otherwise, Clough Lake had to build the mill, Rabbit Lake had to build the mill, and they had to be certain size. But grade-wise, ACKIO is very comparable to a lot of those deposits.
Why don't you just give us an overview of the uranium market? I suppose not just in Canada, but globally as well.
It's hot. It is the hottest it has been since Fukushima. Maybe even better. I would definitely say the fundamentals are the best that they've ever been. And I've heard that from people who have been in the industry for 40 plus years, not even on the exploration side of things, but on the trading side, the uranium trading side, the market side. This is an extremely hot market, and it's really dominated by the lack of supply and increased demand. We're seeing the highest nuclear demand globally ever. And a lot of that is spearheaded by China. China keeps building out 5 reactors a year, and they have no intention of slowing that progress down. You've got India, who's looking at expanding. A lot of European countries have also been looking at expanding. Sizewell C, for example, in the UK, just got a significant amount of funding as well. Globally, nuclear demand is growing significantly, but yeah, that supply side just isn't there. When you compare the previous market run between 2005, 2007, 2008, there were a lot of companies in different countries that were producing uranium. Those companies and those mines are all basically on care and maintenance right now. Kazakhstan has a much more controlled approach to their guidance and their production. Cameco just started ramping up last year, the year before, so they're slowly getting back into things. But they've also noted that their production won't be as high as what they estimated it to be for the end of this year. And then you've got a lot of the African countries or operations in Africa that are hindered by, again, care and maintenance, longer lead times. You've got the coup in Niger. Even the war in Russia has affected Russian supply. So there's a lot of fundamentals. There's a lot of variables at play that are really making this uranium market look hot, really hot. And spot price has just gone above $60. That hasn't happened in quite a while, but that is not enough to incentivize new mining. You need to see $70 a pound, $80 a pound, U3O8. And typically that's contract price you want to see, but spot is the indicator that the retail investors can follow. So when you see spot above $70 and you're getting closer, $80 a pound, that should incentivize previous miners to come back into play. A lot of ISL operations are starting to move forward as well. So they wouldn't be doing so if the market wasn't there. It's just everything is starting to take off. This is very early in the complete run. And hopefully this is going to be a prolonged run because, again, that demand is so high, we're going to see a lot of uranium output required. And as slow as it is right now, it's got to pick up.
Obviously, the demand's there. How far supply are we behind from, like you said, from back in 2002, I think you said? How far are we behind in the supply with the demand obviously increasing?
I would personally say quite a bit. Like a lot of the utilities should have inventory to keep them going for a while. But you have to remember there's a lag time from mining into nuclear fuel production. It's not a quick click of the fingers. It's not like gold where you can just you do it all right at the mine site. There are a lot of different steps that you have to take on the way. That's typically an 18 to 24 month time frame. There are bottlenecks in the conversion and enrichment factors. And that can also put a supply shock on the utilities as well. So that everything can get bottlenecked in those processes because they have limited capacity. So if the utilities aren't coming back in a sustainable time frame to get the nuclear fuel, then there will be bottlenecks. There will be a huge pandemonium to get as much uranium produced and turned into nuclear fuel as possible, and things will take off. I can't put a number on how much supply we're behind by. It varies quite a bit, but that number does continue to grow as more inventory is taken off the spot market, which is another factor in this market that didn't exist previously. You've got Yellowcake, you've got the Sprott with the spot, and they've been buying uranium off the spot market, and they're keeping it in inventory. Who really knows what their plan is down the road. But with all of that taken offline and not accessible to the utilities, it does put a crunch on the supply side of things.
Yeah. And apart from obviously what you've just discussed, what other challenges do you see the actual uranium market facing in the short to medium term?
It's bringing that supply back online for sure. Trying to get the supply to meet the growing demand, because every new reactor, every new restart that's happening in Japan requires twice as much uranium as it would when they're operational. Now, it's almost like flicking a light. When you flick a light, the electricity just jumps and then comes back down to a stable level. Nuclear is the same way. You need twice as much fuel to start all these reactors. So demand's going to peak. It's going to be very high. And then it will level off, but with peaks throughout. So if that supply has to come back, and that will be the biggest hindrance. The other one is just education on the public side of things. Nuclear energy does not have the best reputation in the public's eye, albeit it's the greenest, safest source of baseload power globally, and has been since the 50s. We've had one major accident, which was Chernobyl, and that was a flawed design. Yeah, the The outcome of that was disastrous. There's no doubt about that. Fukushima was terrible, but quite contained. Nobody really died from radioactivity in that. You had the populace did have to leave the area. But I know, like, if that was an oil refinery, what would have happened with that tsunami? You'd have had oil spilled everywhere, and the cleanup would have been just as bad, and the environmental outcome would have been just as bad. So nuclear does get a terrible reputation on the safety side of things and the health side. Just what people don't understand, they fear. However, it is the safest. If you look at a lot of renewable energies today with wind and solar, there are more deaths and more injuries related on an annual basis in those industries alone globally than there is in nuclear energy in 10 years. It's the numbers speak for themselves. It's just, people just have to get over that idea that, oh, this reactor is going to go critical, it's going to blow up. No, it's not, because they're not designed like that anymore. Again, Chernobyl was a flawed design. It was a very early design. They don't build them like that. Even they've come out with safety tolerant fuels that mitigate and prevent these runaway nuclear chain reactions. So reactors can't go critical anymore. Did Fukushima explode in a horrendous nuclear explosion? No, not at all. So they are much safer now.
You mentioned obviously finance coming into the uranium market. What would you say the catalysts are for money to come start flooding in to the industry? Is there a certain trigger point in your opinion?
Yes, and we're seeing it now. The money is definitely starting to flow back in. We've seen some pretty big deals signed for companies like Global Atomic. They've been funded for advancing DASA and putting that into production. NextGen just secured $100 million for their project. We're seeing some of the enrichment and conversion facilities also getting funding. So that money is starting to roll in now, which wasn't there even 2 or 3 years ago. It's come and gone. In 2021, the money was available from everywhere for everyone, because again, Spot was buying a lot of pounds off the open market. They were driving up the spot price, and people saw that as encouraging, started just throwing money at it. We're seeing those same spot price levels now, and the sophisticated investors, the market makers, the funds, they're all seeing that same price value now. We're even seeing it in the news. Uranium wasn't talked about for quite a while, but now we are seeing it in the news. You're seeing it on CNN, you're seeing it on Bloomberg, you're seeing it on Financial Times. It's being mentioned. So that basically means that the sentiment is there, the awareness is there, and the money is flowing in.
So it's starting to build momentum now. So when do you, and I'm not asking for a prediction, but when do you think roughly the price will get to $80?
Very good question. I don't have a crystal ball on that, but looking at some simple arithmetic, spot price jumped up $5 in August. That's a huge jump from $55 to $60 in 1 month. That's just shy of 10% increase. If it were to continue on that momentum, we could see $80 by the end of this year. I don't think it will. I think it'll kind of peter off, but by the end of next year, I don't see why we wouldn't see $80 a pound.
Yeah. And lastly, just wondering if you can give us an outlook of Baselode Energy, sort of over the next 6 to 12 months, what your plans are.
Well, we completed our summer program. We drilled 7,500 meters and 40 drill holes. We expanded a lot of mineralization at ACKIO. We did hit some newer zones. We hit some pretty high grades in areas that there was no drilling previously. We expanded in some of the zones that were previously modeled that they're thicker than we originally thought. So all those results have to come out. We haven't released any assay results yet. They're still coming in. So between now and the end of the year, we will see some assay results coming out. We are doing some additional work, such as mineralogy. We'll be looking at doing some other de-risking projects down the road to see recovery rates and things like that from the ore. just as little bench scale tests. So we'll have some news coming down the road for sure. By summer next year, we will definitely be back at ACKIO. We'll be back at Hook. We'll do some exploration drilling, but we've got some further follow-up to do at ACKIO as well. When we get around to that, probably around May or June of next year. What are we going to do in the wintertime? That's a question that we're debating internally at the moment. We do have some geophysical surveys that do need to be done on other projects, but whether or not we want to get to another project to drill that off, we would like to get to our shadow project to drill on that one. So that would be a number one contender for a winter type of project. But permits and consultation need to be done for that. Otherwise, we'll kind of hold off on the Catharsis project for now, and we'll look to Catharsis in the coming years. But all focus for now will remain on Hook and ACKIO as the forerunner.
James, thank you very much for giving us an update on Baselode Energy. Really appreciate your time. All the best for the remainder of the year going into 2024, and perhaps we can do another updated podcast sometime next year.
Awesome. Yeah, looking forward to it. You know how to find me, and thanks for the opportunity, Rob.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. Thank you for listening to this episode. Please, as always, appreciate your continued support. Please share this episode amongst people or co-workers, ex-workers within our industry across the world. And also, especially with the uranium, there's obviously a lot of different perceptions out there. Maybe some of them are bad. So appreciate if you can share this episode with people outside of our mining industry, just so that you can educate them on uranium, because it will be coming into, I suppose, into society more and more, as James has mentioned. So yeah, please share this episode with people outside of the mining industry also to help educate them. So until
share it with
next
the
time,
German government.
And the German government. Any particular reason for the German government?
Oh, they've taken away all of their nuclear energy, and now they're seeing huge costs for electricity. They don't have the electrical supply anymore to meet a lot of their demand. Like they from what I keep seeing, they're in a hurting situation. Now they're ramping up coal, which is counterintuitive to green CO2. They're importing nuclear energy from other countries. Like it's okay if other countries do it, but they get upset when they do it. I don't know. Nothing makes sense in that decision.
They're doing everything different to what the rest of the world are doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, and the German government as well. Hopefully they're watching this as well. So until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.